My friend James was in prison last Christmas due to an unfortunate misunderstanding in that he understood that the drug laws did not apply to him, and evidently they did. But anywho, this Christmas, his mother, in celebration of him being a free man, bought him a copy of my book, which is called What She Said and What I Heard, How One Man Shut Up and Started Listening. And she had me sign it. She actually met me, had me sign the book, even though there's signed copies right there at Park Road Books, had me sign the book to him, write him a note, and on Christmas morning, I received a photo of the wrapping paper, the book, and he said, finally, because he's no longer earning quite as much money, but he's gone the straight and narrow, and he has a copy of my book. So if you have a loved one in prison, out of prison, that you think would benefit from my book, I hope you buy it. You can buy autographed copies at Park Road Books, my favorite independent bookseller right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, or wherever you buy it. You can buy it from Jeff Bezos. That money spends too. I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
So unless you can understand Billie Holiday growing up in a whorehouse in Philadelphia, you can't understand her pain.
What is the sound of one man listening? This is Man Listening, a fresh podcast featuring the stories of strong women who bounce back. Man Listening, because every woman deserves to be heard.
Hi, I'm Stuart Watson, and welcome to Man Listening. Kenya Templeton and I were in a play together 4 years ago. It was a strange play. Quentin Talley on cue produced it. It was in Spirit Square. It's called Days of Absence, and it was strange in the sense that I was the only white person in the cast or the crew, and on stage, all the other actors were in whiteface. So it was a play called Days of Absence, and Kenya played the nurse. And through that, I learned she has this amazing voice. She can channel Sarah Vaughan, and it's just amazing. And you'll hear a little of that today. So without further ado, my friend Kenya Templeton. Where were you born?
I was born in Heidelberg, Germany. And when I was a kid, it was called West Germany. And I still have a problem not saying West Germany.
Yeah. So who was in the military? Somebody.
My father.
Okay.
Yeah.
Army?
Army, yes.
What branch? What division? What?
I think it's the 33rd Division.
Okay.
And he was in the Army band, and it's considered one of the most elite bands in the Army. Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
What did he play?
Primary instrument is trumpet.
Uh-huh.
But my dad can play clarinet, saxophone, flute, French horn, flugelhorn.
So horn and woodwinds.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
And so you grew up seeing him perform.
Yes. Yes.
Now, did he do jazz?
He did not do jazz. My dad is a funk person.
Excellent.
He's funk and loves to play classical marches. Like my dad can sit down and play a Sousa march like it's nobody's business.
Is he still with us?
Yes.
Super. Where does he live?
Statesville, North Carolina.
So are y'all close? Do you see him very often?
I don't get to see him too often. He has a health issue, so I work with the public, so I have to kind of stay away from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea. So is that where your music comes from, or does it come from your mother as well?
It comes from my mother as well.
So what was her musical?
We don't think of my mom as a singer, but now that I'm getting older, I realize my mom is a singer, and she's also plays the piano. And so it was nothing for her to sit down and play the piano and kind of let things go away, kind of soothe her soul by playing the piano. And then when she was cooking in the kitchen or, doing something, she was always singing. And we laughed because she would take like a funk or an R&B song and kind of operarize it. So we called it Genize it. And so it was always like this opera, like, we're gonna have a funky good time. We're gonna take it higher. And it's like, what? There's nothing funky about that, Mom. But she had beautiful tone. She has richness to her voice. And a lot of my voice really comes from my mom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is she with us?
She sure is.
And she lives?
Also in Statesville.
And are they still together?
Oh, God, no.
They're still in the same town.
They're still in the same town. They get along, but there was a period where they didn't. So, yeah.
There are no lawyers, guns, and money whenever they get within 500 feet of one another.
No, actually, my dad and my mom, like, kick it. And my mom and my bonus mom, they hang out. If they're at social events, people are kind of like, whoa. Because the ex-wife and the current wife are, like, hanging out and giggling. And people just aren't accustomed to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you grow up going to church?
I did. Big time.
What kind of church?
Okay. How much time you got?
Well, denomination.
My dad's side of the family started a Presbyterian church. So we started at Presbyterian. Then we went to Baptist. And then when I turned 16, I was fed up with the Baptist church that we attended. So I started going to Episcopal church. I went to mosque and I went to temple.
What kind of music were in the religious institutions that you grew up in?
I had a very rich musical history. We had a minister of music who actually had an MFA in music. And so it was everything from classical pieces. We did cantatas at Christmas. We did Easter programs that were just filled with tons of music. So it was everything from good old-timey quartet gospel, because we had a men's quartet group, to big mass choirs. I mean, our standard choir was probably 50 people, which for the size of our church is a lot of people. But we were known for our singing. Like, our church was known for its music.
You're already schooling me, because I made this prejudiced assumption that you grew up with the rock and gospel, you know.
It was all of it. It was all of it.
But well, from what I heard about what your mother sang, there was a formality.
Yes, yes.
And so some of it came out of traditional education, Masters of Fine Art, classical, going all the way back to the standard hymnal, all the way to your home with your dad and...
Yep.
Okay. Your father's favorite funk band?
Tower of Power.
Oh, yeah. They had like a wall of horns.
Yes. My dad is all about horn lines. My dad just has an ear, and I have his ear. But he says my ear is a little more in tune than his, because I can hear harmonies that seem to not match but do, and then can slide back into it inharmonically. And so, though I don't have a lot of formal training, he says my ears are amazing.
Okay. Music that is, you have the discs or the albums. What do you have?
Oh gosh.
You have discs, you have albums, is it all Spotify now?
I actually love CDs and cassettes, and I have both. I only have one vinyl left because I got tired I moved a lot.
Right.
And I always was scared that I'd break them, so I just sold them and said, I'm done.
And it's bulky.
Yes. So I have cassettes. A matter of fact, I keep cassettes in my car, and I keep also CDs in my car.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is a disc that you have, or a cassette, that you would not have had it not been for your father? Like, you would probably not have discovered blank or had it in your collection had it not been, like, when I hear blank, I think of my dad.
Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal, Walking Blues, Taj Mahal with, my dad's gonna kick my butt because all of a sudden I just forgot this guy. Howard Johnson, I think was his name, Howard something, but he had a brass band, and then Taj Mahal played with him, and they did a old album back in the 70s, but then they did another album in the early 2000s, And my dad told me, because I lived in New York at the time on Long Island, he's like, I'm trying to find this album on CD. And at first I found the newer one that was live, and he's like, no, that's not it, that's not it. And then one day I walked into Tower Records and I was like, that is it, that's the CD. And I shipped it to my dad.
And he got it.
Yep.
And his response was?
I think my dad probably shed a tear. I'm almost positive he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how many of you are there?
Okay. So there's
for your mother, there are how many?
For my mom and dad, there are 2, and then for my dad's marriage, there are 2 more.
Okay, so you've got 2 half siblings.
Well, 2 bonus sisters.
Bonus sisters.
Yes.
But they're genetically half sisters.
No.
No, they're not.
It was
they
actually
came with the wife.
They came with my dad's wife. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. My dad married one of my high school best friend's moms.
Oh, interesting.
So we were already pretty tight anyway.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do your parents still go to church?
My dad never really was a church person. He went to church because of my mom.
Yeah.
My dad, like, totally is out of church, like, doesn't understand it, doesn't believe in it. My mom does.
Okay. What kind of church does she go to?
Well, we're estranged right now.
Okay.
We have been for a couple of years. She has moved churches. I think she's at a AME Zion church, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Because that's what she grew up. That's one of the denominations she grew up in.
And what, if any, religious institution do you go to regularly? Do you have a home base?
I do not. I converted to Judaism in 2005.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah, so I had a great synagogue back in Brooklyn. Then moving to the South, here to Charlotte, people see Jewish as white.
Yeah.
And as a single black woman with no children who doesn't plan to have children, most religious institutions, but especially synagogues, aren't very inclusive. And so I don't feel culturally connected, and I don't feel like I'm connected in terms of how my family structure is.
Right.
So I don't go.
There's got to be a story behind the conversion to Judaism, because you had been to the mosque.
Yes.
You had been to all manner of churches, Presbyterian, Baptist, all this kind of stuff. Tell me the story. What led to that?
So I started, when I moved to New York, I was working for a Jewish-owned company. A guy by the name of Mel Rich went to work for Phoenix Laboratories and one of their divisions, Great Earth Vitamins. And so I was kind of like thrown into Judaism. And a lot of the prejudices and ignorances I had growing up in the South in church came out. And so I became a person that was listening versus speaking or making any noise to figure out and learn. So I just learned a lot of stuff. I started going to holidays at the temple. I would go to the JCC, the Jewish Community Center. And then I started reading a book called The Last Kabbalist in Lisbon by Richard Zimler. And I used to go back and forth between LA and New York with my job. And one night I was waiting on the red eye, and it was a ton of Hasidic Jews in LAX. But I'm sitting on the floor just deep into reading Richard Zimler's The Last Kabbalist in Lisbon. And a rabbi comes up and asks what led me to read this book. And we got to talking about how I saw so much hypocrisy in Christianity starting as a kid, because I got a Bible with a concordance. And when I would reference the concordance and the Encyclopedia Britannica to the Bible, what we were told made no sense. And then when I would see how people lived their lives, that didn't make any sense. So he was writing down some notes, and he asked for my card. And a week later, I received a box at my office of books. And there were notations in the books that referenced some of the questions that I had. And so I just started to study with him. And as I started to study and get more involved, I was like, this seems to fit me. So I kind of say I'm like 60% Jewish and 40% Buddhist, because I also like going to temple every once in a while.
Call them, what do they call them? Judists?
Yes.
Boo Jews. Boo Jews. I've heard them call that
yeah,
too.
they're both.
I know. I find myself getting a little sad that you don't feel like you fit with the various temples and synagogues here in Charlotte.
Yes.
I wish that were not the case. And I'm not Jewish. If I were a member of temple blah, 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 is there anything that I could do for Kenya? Like, is there anything I can do for you to welcome you? Like, to you as an individual?
One is to not stare. I've been stared at most of my life because I've always been that different person, whether it was for a handicap that I was born with, a birth defect that I was born with, and ways that had to be handled. Being black in a synagogue that's outside of New York or Atlanta, because once you get outside of going to a traditional black synagogue or being in those two cities, you're going to have a hard time finding black people in synagogue. Saying hello, because a lot of times people will just stare and won't even say hello. And then also just understanding that there are people of all colors, or what we call a yeka. There are people of all colors in Judaism.
What does that word mean?
It means people of color in Judaism.
Oh, I get you.
So I used to belong to a group. They've disbanded now and formed another group. It was called a yeka, and it was for Jews of color. And every year we would have a Hanukkah celebration with music from all over the world of people of color, and that was like everything to me. So it's very different being here. But those three things, saying hello, don't stare, and understanding that there are Jews of every color, every country, continent, there are Jewish people of color.
Jewish means so many different things to so
Right.
many different people. Like, for some people, it's an ethnic designation.
Right.
For some people, it's very much a spiritual way of life. It's a religious designation.
Exactly.
And for some people, it's cultural. What does being Jewish mean to you? Why? Like, it's one thing to love the religion and get a lot out of it and read books about it. Quite another to convert,
Right.
because it requires a lot.
There are two things Judaism means to me. One is learning, and I live by the mantra that learning is living and living is learning. And so that rabbi taking the time to notice a book that I'm reading, and I mean, the LAX was packed. We were packed in there like sardines at 10 o'clock at night, waiting on an 11 o'clock flight. So for him to take that time and to take the time to send me the books and allow me to keep them and to then invite me to his synagogue, because he was a Siddim and he invited me to his synagogue. He didn't have to do that. And so all that I've learned from it has been eye-opening, because it has explained a lot of the questions I had as a kid. But also the discipline, like saying Baruchs and knowing Hebrew, and my Hebrew is choppy and ugly now, but I did speak it very well at one point. You know, giving to charity. You know, I really try to think from a charitable standpoint in terms of tzedakah and
What does that word mean?
giving to charity.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I really learned about learning and how life is a constant learning, and that it's okay, and that you're not going to get all the answers, but the answers are there if you seek them, and discipline will bring a lot of what you want to you. And so, and now I'm in a process right now of getting back to discipline, because 2020 and even some years before, I got out of my disciplinary beliefs, and so now I'm trying to get back into that.
I know that charity is one of the pillars of Islam as well.
Yep.
And I know that you must run into people, and it's a distinction I learned in the last 5 years, people who are black and Muslim and people who are black Muslim. When you have conversations with friends and family and acquaintances who are black and Muslim or black Muslim, since converting to Judaism, how have those conversations changed? Like, what kinds of conversations do you have that, as a person raised as a Christian who's a white guy, that I would not have?
Honestly, I don't have too many conversations about religion. I usually try to stay away from those conversations, because what I find is that if people grow up in a specific religion, that's all they know. And what they know about other religions is rhetoric. They haven't studied. Even when I have conversations with a lot of Christians, I'm like, have you read the Bible? Have you studied it? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I just really don't usually have conversations about religion.
I hear you saying it degenerates into an argument rather rapidly.
Yes.
As opposed to finding commonality and
Right.
learning from one another.
Right.
Oh, I find that's sad too. You know?
Yes.
But I mean, there's so much that the Abrahamic traditions in particular, but Buddhism
Yeah.
and Christianity share.
Yep.
Do you begin your day with Baruchs and end your day? Do you have certain times of the day that you say prayers?
I have to say I have come away from most of my Jewishness in terms of the discipline part. So that's what I'm trying to get back to. I do meditate daily. I've been in a rotation of meditating twice a day and changing that mantra every 30 days. So right now I'm on the mantra of I am loved, because I have realized through therapy that I never felt loved as a kid. And I constantly sought out being a people pleaser, partially because I come from two narcissistic parents that, you know, it's all about appearances and pleasing people. And that led to a lot of severe depression and even suicidal thoughts. So I've learned a lot in the past 7 years about learning how to parent myself. That's something John Love Jr. talks about, is if you didn't feel loved as a child, if you didn't feel like you were parented as a child, you have to parent yourself at some time to be able to come out of that. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of great literature out there about self-parenting
Yep.
and all that.
Yeah.
Can I just say I love you? I loved performing with you. We're not besties, but I just so enjoyed that.
Yes.
Oh, I guess I should talk about that.
Okay.
You and I were thrown together in this play.
Yes.
And I was the only white guy in the cast and the crew for that particular play.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I was like, oh, I'm on board for this. This is a learning opportunity. And,
Yes.
and my job was to keep my mouth shut. And,
No, you have the best voice. That's sad.
well, no, keep my mouth shut about how the play should go.
Gotcha.
Like, I got enough problems learning my own lines and doing my own deal without, figuring out how somebody else should do anything.
Yeah, you had one of the longest monologues in that
I did,
play.
and it was tough, and people were wandering around behind me carrying signs and chanting.
And I was the nurse.
You were the nurse. I remember that. I got a picture of you and I
Oh, gosh.
backstage. I'm going to have to dig that out. That's going on social media. How did you get involved in performing in front of people, particularly singing, which is, you have such a lovely voice. That was not a musical, but...
Right. I got into singing because of church. I was in the kids choir. And like I said, our musical director, I also played piano for church. So there was a time where our church divided and people left our church. And so some of the musicians left also. So that we would have music, I played the piano. And so I would sing and play the piano. I would sing with the kids choir. And then all of a sudden I was a soloist. And I'm like, why am I a soloist? And I sang Yes, Jesus Loves Me, this really rocking version of it.
What did it sound like?
Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me, for the Bible tells me so. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me, for the Bible tells me so.
I would come back to church for that.
Well, you would be in church all day, because we were there from Sunday school started at 9:30, and then church service started at 11. We usually didn't get out till 1:30, and then we'd have a sing-in, and that's where people from different churches would come and special groups, and we'd have a sing-in from 3 p.m. to like 7. So that's how I got into singing. And then the next thing I knew, I was a soloist for the adult choir, starting when I was 11 years old, doing Oh Holy Night for our Christmas programs. And then they added God So Loved the World, which is not an easy song to sing. So I don't know why they thought a 13-year-old should be singing that song, but I did. And I then was singing with the teen choir, the mass choir at church, and then we had another choir that was kind of like the young adult choir.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Artist, living or dead, that you would most like to have at your kitchen table and just make her a meal, sit down.
Al Jarreau.
Really?
Yep. Al Jarreau.
Wow.
Al Jarreau and Bobby McFerrin are why I sing. Period. I even have a bicycle that someone built for me that its name is Jarreau McFerrin. That's the name of my bicycle.
Wow. You've seen him.
I've seen him. I've met him. I was supposed to see him in concert a month and 3 days after he died. He was coming to the Charlotte area.
When you met him, what was that like?
I couldn't talk. And for people that know me, that might be a little scary, but I became that 4-year-old girl that heard Look to the Rainbow for the first time and sat in front of the speaker of my dad's stereo and just was like, what are these sounds? Who is this person? Are they crazy? How did they get an album? My mama tells me to shut up when I make these sounds. How does he make money making these sounds? Like, yeah, I froze up. And my boyfriend at the time is a jazz singer. And he was like, if you don't say something, you're going to regret it. And I was like, Mr. Jarreau, like, you don't understand. I was like, that's all I could say is you just don't understand. And I said it just like that.
Yeah. And what did he say?
He gave me the biggest hug, and I just started crying. And my boyfriend at the time was just shaking his head like, Lord, this is not how this moment was in her head. I know this is not what it was in her head. But then I was like, don't cry. And I was like, my mom used to get on me about making noises, and all I was doing was copying you. And he just laughed. He thought that was the funniest thing. That I'd walk around going, and that's how I started scatting, was copying Al Jarreau.
Yeah. Wow.
And then when I heard Sarah Vaughan, I was like, oh my God, like, she's operatic, but she's jazzy. So then I'd walk around going, woo, 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 and I thought I was scatting. Now I know I wasn't, but and then I just kind of melded all of that, because then I saw Bobby McFerrin doing what me and my friends would do in the cafeteria, beating on the tabletop and beatboxing. And so it was like, oh, he's doing that, but adding jazz and world music. And so it's just like I'm the conglomerate of all of that, just all mixed together.
I was going to tell you, I once bumped into Ray Charles.
Ooh.
And what came out of my mouth was the dumbest thing. I said, everybody loves you, Ray. And he said, well, I love everybody. I couldn't, you can't sum it up. And he comes from he was born in the same part of the country, and obviously completely different people.
Yep. Wow.
I don't think I have a musical bone in my body, but
I think everybody has musicality, personally.
Yeah.
When I do workshops or concerts and I get people to scat, it's funny to hear. I can almost see the person where they really get into it and their head is moving and a bee doo doo dee da da da, and I'm like, You've got musicality, honey. You just don't know it.
So how do you bring that out?
People, this is the thing. People talk about me scatting. That's one of the things I'm known for. But it comes from the tradition that I needed to get angst and anger and emotions out because I didn't have the opportunity to do that as a kid. And what I find is that most people aren't willing to be vulnerable and give of themselves. So when I go on the stage, if you want to know who I am, listen to me sing, because I'm my most vulnerable and transparent on the stage. So when people, even just getting them to understand what scatting is, because I teach a workshop on the vocal history of jazz. And so when I go through that workshop and they understand it, then it's like you can see them becoming whatever instrument they like, whether it's drums, saxophone, flute, trumpet. You can see it in them. And so once you do that, then you can pull that musicality out. But you got to get rid of the walls that we put up.
Have you seen Ma Rainey's Black Bottom?
Oh, yeah.
What is the distinction? How do you know when a white jazz artist is honoring the tradition and respecting the tradition, and when is that white artist appropriating a culture or like capitalizing on a culture?
Ooh, I'm about to get in trouble. Ooh, I'm about to say something that's going to get me in trouble.
Good. That I know I done hit a nerve here.
Most white people, and we're learning this through all the social unrest that we've had this year, most white people don't understand the Black experience. And jazz comes from the Black experience. So unless you can understand Billie Holiday growing up in a whorehouse in Philadelphia, you can't understand her pain. You can't understand why she's doing drugs to numb that pain when she's one of the most beautiful women in the country, if not the world, and has a voice that's just dynamic in so many different ways. And it's tender, but it's broken, but it's at the same time it's wrenching, when she sings Strange Fruit. If you don't understand her experience and be able to step into her shoes, even just get your pinky toe in her shoe, you cannot understand jazz. You cannot understand Love Supreme. You cannot understand Britches Brew. You can't if you don't understand the Black experience. So I have this problem with probably 95% of current white jazz artists, because they don't understand the experience, they don't know the history, and jazz is a feeling. It's not a music to me. It's a feeling. It's a way to express yourself. It was a way that people who did not have the opportunity to walk on the sidewalk, to use a water fountain, to be able to own land, it was their way to get that out. Whether it was the pain, whether it was the jubilation, whether it was their religion, it's a way to get that out. So unless you understand the Black experience in America, step away from the jazz stand. That's my personal feeling.
Have you ever heard Steve Martin do White Man's Blues?
Yes.
Got so mad I threw my drink across the lawn. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Is that, it's like there's a body of music that it's okay. Mm-hmm. And there's another body of music. If you do it and someone says it's cultural appropriation, that's not being politically correct. It's saying you're disrespecting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's disrespectful.
So I'll give you a very specific example.
Okay.
Kendrick Lamar won the Pulitzer Prize.
Right.
There are some Black people who are like, okay. But And you might say that was like a virtue signaling on the part of a bunch of white people as a make good.
Right.
As a media make good, a little media reparation.
But
I'm not saying, I think the guy is completely talented. I think he completely deserved it.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know about for which body of work.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's kind of like when somebody gets the Oscar when they should have gotten the Oscar for the earlier film.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. So you've got a guy who wins the Pulitzer Prize, but if you're a teacher, let's say, you're a white teacher doing an intro to hip hop, does that mean A, you shouldn't be teaching the class, B, don't quote from the lyrics, C, just play the music? Are you what are you to do? You know, if you want, like, you want to appreciate the form,
right. Let the people who understand the form, live the form, perform the form, teach the form. That's one of the reasons why I have problems with a lot of jazz that's out today, because it's so academic. A lot of the people that are winning Grammys and awards and accolades in jazz, especially female singers, when I hear them sing, I hear nothing, because there's no feel to it. There's no emotion to it. And Black American music is always about that emotion, that ability to be able to communicate. So when it comes to like a Kendrick Lamar, I find it very funny, because I feel like some of the best poetry on the planet comes from hip hop. And if you want to tell me that hip hop is not poetry, let's sit down and talk about pentameter and all the different parts of poetry and lay it out. You cannot tell me some of the best stories, pictures, taking words and painting a picture doesn't come from hip hop.
Not to mention inventing an entirely new form.
Yep.
Like, say, okay, we're going to talk about rhyme and meter and internal rhyme and, assonance and dissonance, and we're going to talk about all these elements.
Yep.
Now let's apply it. Just because it's not a damn villanelle
right.
doesn't mean that it does not incorporate in very, very sophisticated and subtle ways all these elements of poetry.
And most of the people that are doing hip hop don't have a degree the first. It's innate in them, because it's their way of expressing themselves. So to me, it was appropriate for Kendrick to win a Pulitzer. There are people who should have won Pulitzers way before that for hip hop that they created. But hey, if we get one, we'll take that one. But yeah, I think a lot of music has become too academic, and it's funny because I feel the need or the desire to go to school to study music right now. That's one of the things I want to do in the next 5 years, but I will never become academic about jazz. It's just not in my soul. Like, it's the opposite, but I want to learn the technicality of music.
See here, this is again my ignorance. I thought you did study music.
No, I have degrees from NC State with my sweatshirt
Wolfpack.
on. Wolfpack Pride, agricultural education, and agricultural economics.
Now, why'd you do that? Why didn't you go to school?
I loved NC State. I went to NC State because of Jim Valvino, believe it or not. And I'm also a 4-H'er, a lifetime 4-H'er. So NC State was home to me. I also won the North Carolina Teaching Fellows Scholarship. And so wanting to go into agriculture, because originally I wanted to be a poultry veterinarian. That's what I went to school originally to do. I thought I was going to teach my 4 years. And then,
okay, weird, but do you have any chickens now?
I don't.
What's with the chicken love? I love to eat fried chicken.
I love to eat fried chicken. I just think chickens are an underrated animal, and we only know the Leghorn chicken because most of us, that's what is mostly grown for commercial use. But to see something like a Brahma Red or a Connecticut, to see all these different varietals and the feathers, and
Yeah, and the laying hens. They got a million kinds of laying hens now,
and then
too.
when you get into guinea fowl and turkeys, and I just think they're beautiful birds, and we don't really honor them in the way that we should. And so, also Statesville was at one point the leading provider of breeder chicks for the world.
Wow. So they'd put them in the little boxes and ship them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at one point, Statesville for a long time, and they may still be, but I know they were the leading for breeder chicks. And then a guy by the name of Lyle Castle was the poultry ag agent for Iredell County, and he started poultry judging teams in Iredell County. And I'm the type of person, I'll just try something just to say I did it. And we won state.
Well, I gotta ask. To me, I'm sorry, a chicken is a chicken. How do you judge a good chicken from a less good chicken?
Oh, you got to look at the feathers.
It's a chicken, isn't it?
No, you got to look at the feathers, the health of the beak, the eyes. You even have to put your fingers on the anus to feel
no.
the bone.
Okay, no, thank you. No, thank you. I can go to my grave happy, never having judged a chicken.
But we didn't judge just chickens. Then you had to judge chicken parts, and you had to candle eggs. So we did the whole gambit. And then for our award ceremony, we made omelets.
Yeah, but doing chicken proctology does not strike me as a tremendously marketable skill. Maybe.
Look up how much a poultry veterinarian gets paid.
Yeah.
You will change your mind.
Yeah, because it means straight up money too, you know.
And vet school is not cheap, so
right.
Hey.
Absolutely. And they're more rare.
Yes.
There are probably less of them than there are brain surgeons.
Yes,
I
definitely.
mean, because, you know, if you're Tyson, you need those people. Or if you're a Tyson grower, you know, you need those people.
That's what I went to school originally to do.
So when you go back for music, I hate to say this, no disrespect to chicken veterinarians everywhere, but anybody willing can stick their finger up a chicken's butt. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's way more than that, because then you got to take. Did you pass organic chemistry?
Oh, hell no. I didn't pass regular chemistry.
Then you won't be a poultry veterinarian.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is, there are a lot of chicken growers out there.
Yes.
You have a unique voice.
Yes.
So when you go back to school for
music.
for your vocal arts, not just music, but singing, how will you study it? I mean, like, what do you want to study and to what end?
I want to study more the technicality, like the terms in terms of music, like legato, rubato, staccato, pizzicato. I know them a little bit from being in band, because I don't just sing, I play some other instruments. But I want to really dig into the technicality of music. I want to get more into writing and arranging music. I do it now, but I'd like to get into the more technical part of it.
How will that help you as an artist?
The money is not in performing. The money is in writing. And though I love to perform, and I will always perform, I enjoy reading lyrics to songs more than anything. I would rather read the lyrics to a song than a book, just because.
So does this mean you're Bernie Taupin, not Elton John? Is this?
Yes, I'm actually a little of both. But yeah, speaking of Elton John, oh gosh, and Bernie Taupin, like, woo, that's one of my goals, is to be that Bernie Taupin, to be a John Lennon, to be a Gershwin, to be all those things.
Well, I have to ask a rude question. I mean, you're going to be performing here in just a few days, the great Sarah Vaughan.
Yes.
How do you keep the lights on as an artist?
So I'm actually the market and customer care manager for Viva Raw. My career has been in natural products industry for over 25 years. And I was working for Earth Fare when it closed. And I had been saying for months I wanted to get into being a creative full time. And so when the company closed, I said, okay, that's the universe telling me to leap out there. And then 2 days later I had COVID.
Ugh.
And then 2 weeks later was a shutdown. So,
Well, congratulations for
welcome to being a creative.
goodness. Well, let me ask you a couple of hard questions.
Okay.
If we get hit by a lightning bolt right here,
Mm-hmm.
and all that survives is this little piece of tape,
Okay.
what is Kenya's legacy? What not what do you want to be remembered by, but the people who know you, what do you think their takeaway will be?
Their takeaway is going to be that Kenya will learn about anything, whether it's for the sport of it, whether it's just for the experience. I will learn anything. So whether it was poultry judging, whether it's going to school to study music, I will learn anything. And even beyond learning, I will teach. Because something I've come into in the past year and a half, reading a book called The Instruction by Ainsley MacLeod. And it talks about what your spirit is, what your soul is, what your soul's intent is in its human form, and how to maximize that. And so I have learned that I am a teacher. And 5 years ago when I left Healthy Home Market, I was like, I'm tired of teaching people. Why don't people teach me? And then it came that I kept teaching. So yeah, I'm a learner and I'm a teacher.
Now this is one that I'm nervous about asking.
Okay.
What would you like sung at your funeral?
Ooh, Motherless Child.
Let me hear.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long ways from home. A long ways from home.
I honor your gift so much. You are so kind to make time.
No problem.
It's a great privilege knowing you. It really is.
Working with you was one of the best parts of my creative career. So
Oh, you're so sweet.
that whole
But
play.
you have talent.
No, bro, you have talent.
You have talent.
I used to just sit and listen to the nuances of your voice and your inflections and watch you on the side work on your monologues and how you would choose which words to add emphasis to. Like those are things I listen to because that's what I study when I learn a song.
Yeah.
People think that you just get up and sing. No, you got to know what you're talking about and know how to present it.
Well, there are two things about that a lot of people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
One is it was the first play that was done down at Spirit Square after there was, ever what you want to call it, riot or unrest,
Right,
in
right.
which a man was killed.
Right.
So it was within blocks of where a man was killed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the second thing is that one night we were there was a Donald Trump rally
Yep.
in the adjacent theater.
Yep.
And I was like, holy cow. And they had hundreds,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a dozen people
Yes.
watching us. And I was like, which message do people need to hear? The
Yeah.
message of, the message of what Q was producing down there, or the message that was next door. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, there was a lot of juxtaposition going on during that time. Woo.
Yeah. But it was a pleasure. It was
Thank
a privilege.
you. Thank you so much.
And Kenya, in her NC State sweatshirt, sporting the Wolfpack pride, she went off to prepare to do the Sarah Vaughan concert. She did a holiday concert, and she's got, just such a rich future ahead. You can find her Kenya, like the country Templeton, performs on Facebook. Kenya Templeton. Thank you, Kenya.
Man Listening is a production of Unmediated LLC in cooperation with the Queen City Podcast Network and Balto Creative Media. Allison Andrews at Andrews Creative and Rachel Clapp Miller are developmental producers. Sally Higgins at Higgins & Owens tries to keep us legal. Our music is A Day at the Park by the group Pictures of the Floating World. Your announcer is Catherine Smith. That's me. Please go to our Patreon page. You'll find us at patreon.com. Look for Man Listening, one word, no spaces. We hope you'll join us by becoming a member. A small investment can raise up the conversation. If you want exclusive member merch like a t-shirt, we can arrange that too.
I don't want to jinx it, but this time next week I'm supposed to do a big national interview. And I really, fingers crossed, I don't want to jinx it, but for those of you here from the very beginning, thank you. And I'll never forget you. I really appreciate it.
Don't forget to support us at Patreon. We believe one voice can change the conversation. Click the subscribe button, and next week you'll hear.
Not only did I get pregnant at 42, but my now husband left me, broke up with me, and it came back and said I made a mistake.
That's next week on Man Listening. Thanks.